bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum rum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hello, my friends. It's so great to see all of you here. Hi, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I'm here every Monday night at 8 o'clock to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to teach you what I know about homeopathy and I like to see how you help each other as well. So, my friends, for those of you who already know me, nice to see you all. Thanks for joining me. I see a lot of my regulars and my favorite friends, Sylvia from Ontario and Kathy from Middle Tennessee, Anita, Patricia. So good to see you all. Wisconsin and Bedford, Michigan, Kansas, Missouri. It's great to see you. I see lots more from all over Houston, Minnesota. It's fun to see where everyone's from. And it uses up a little time before people start joining in. And I'm going to ask you, my friends, that's Lissa from Mexico too, and Connecticut and Oklahoma. So my friends, please share, like, subscribe. It really does make a difference. It helps get this message out. This is not monetized, so that you know I give this information out because I want you to learn. I also hope that you'll take my courses eventually, or even right away. That is how we get even deeper information out, because homeopathy is a fascinating subject. There's lots to learn. You can do a great deal. Hi, Tara from Western Australia. There's lots to learn, and there's a lot you can do with a little bit of information, but there's even a lot more that can be done with a more in-depth amount of information. So tonight we're going to talk about what happens in the winter. Now we're headed that way. November is gray. It's already gray in Buffalo, my hometown. And it's that gray weather that affects people so dramatically. Now, if you're a naturopath, you're going to say, oh, you should just be taking synthetic vitamin D, which I completely disagree with. I don't think we should be taking anything synthetic of any sort whatsoever. I can't think of a time when I believe that a synthetic vitamin would be of use. I've taken them myself. I learned my lesson. Synthetic vitamin C and D and A and E, and they are manufactured by an industry that we don't have an awful lot of respect for. So I'm going to tell you that we don't go for synthetics. Now, natural vitamin D, sunshine, foods that are high in vitamin D, butter and lard and tallow and more butter and more butter and more butter. I couldn't agree more with that. But that's where the vitamins reside in their natural form. And our goal is always to make things as natural as possible, because the body is not intended to be able to, put up with or utilize synthetic materials. That's all rather new. Should you not know that synthetics are fairly new, at least in my lifetime. And so we're going to do it the homeopathic way. I'm going to teach you how to use these medicines. And the first thing I'm going to do is, because this seasonal problem with inability to be able to get through the winter without depression or sadness or fatigue even is so prominent. Even for those people who live in the South, because they're not getting outside even enough there. I'm going to point something out to you, and it's a very broad rubric, my friends. I'm looking at the Meta Repertory, 4th edition by Robin Murphy. You're not going to find protocols here. You're not going to find the potencies, but you will find some information that will lead us to some of the medicines. And so what I'm going to show you, I'm going to point out this rubric right here. Okay? I'm going to hold it up so that you can kind of see. For those of you who have this book, it's page 2539. And there it is, right there. Oh, it's blurred. Let's see if I can pull it back. Can you see these medicines that are listed? There are a number of them. This is all about ailments in winter, or worse during winter. Worse during winter. Now, it's interesting. Winter aggravates is another way of putting it. What's interesting about it is it doesn't tell us what is going wrong in winter. It only tells us that the person is worse in winter. That could be their temperament, could be their personality, could be their joints, could be their skin, could be their gut, could be many, many conditions that are worse in winter. But the fact is that it starts, I can see I need to button this, but the fact is that it is an aspect of the most noteworthy aspect of this condition that affects people in winter. Now, we're not talking about depression in the summer, or depression because of sad news, or depression because of a loss, financial, familial, whatever it might be. We're talking about ailments in the winter. So this is a very important rubric. And I want you to remember that this is an important rubric, because if you have a repertory, many of you do. I see some of you here who have taken my courses and are in my academy. Hi, Paula. Nice to see you from Wisconsin. Nice to see all my friends. I want you to remember this because I want you to understand how we're looking these things up. Now, I'm going to tell you that had I not looked this up in the repertory, I would already know. How would I know that the medicines that I'm going to teach you about tonight that should be considered, and what potencies and what frequencies, how would I know that we should consider these? Because I know my materia medica. And I want you to learn materia medica as well. You don't have to know hundreds of them, hundreds of homeopathic medicines. But if you know the top 10, and once you learn those, the top 20, and once you learn those, the top, 100. As you grow your knowledge, it will grow exponentially. And you think that, oh, I'm too old to learn all this. No, I'm not expecting you to memorize. You're going to learn these medicines because you're using them. And once you use a medicine for your cat, or you use one of these homeopathic medicines for your husband, or someone else in your family, or a friend, etc., you will remember that medicine. Maybe not in all of its intricacies, but you will remember a good deal about it. So, what I want to point out here is ailments in winter. In other words, the winter season aggravates. And you probably couldn't see it here, but Aurum, A-U-R-U-M, which means Aurum metallicum. Aurum metallicum is not only bold, but it is capped in capital letters, and it is underlined. It's the only medicine there. It's the only medicine that has all three of those characteristics. It's bold, capitalized, and underlined. Now, there are other medicines that are equally as valuable, and it doesn't mean that that's the only medicine. It's not what it means at all. What it means is that it is one of the medicines that has been found to be the most useful for ailments in the winter season. And so the remedy is Aurum metallicum, one of our top medicines for depression. But it also happens to have a sense of hopelessness. Forget the vitamin D. I'm not going to talk at all about, we don't do vitamins in homeopathy. We don't consider them. So we're going to be talking about, instead, we're going to use a medicine that uproots the condition, doesn't hit it with a synthetic over and over again, and now the body has to compensate in other ways. So for Aurum metallicum, I always use Aurum metallicum in a 200C. Are there occasions in which I don't? Once in a while I'll use it in a different potency. But across the board, for most people, Aurum metallicum is great for that hopelessness, that despondency. It's when the person can't see past what's coming up. They have a hard time even believing that spring will come again, that the sun will shine again. And they see not only are the dark days dark for them, they are darker than for most. They sense a deep depth of darkness. They almost feel as though there's no reason to live. And it is used in a 200C every third day. Sometimes it's every other day. When I'm teaching this to the general public, I'm going to say, my friends, every third day. And I'm going to say it's only one dose every 3 days. And I'm also going to say that when you see a shift, stop. The medicine is acted. If it seems as though the medicine needs to be repeated a few weeks later, commence again. But what I want you to do is you're not going to be using, this is not a vitamin. This is not a supplement. That's not what this is at all. I'm just reminding you over and over again. What you want to do is take it until you no longer need it. Then when one no longer needs it, then we halt and commence its use at a later date as it's needed. That's the beauty of homeopathy. And what you should find are one of my 3 magic markers, perhaps 2 of them, or perhaps all 3 of them, will present. What are the magic markers? Less intensity to the symptoms. That's an indication that the medicine is correct. Lasting for a shorter period of time. When the symptoms occur, they last for a shorter period of time. Instead of it all day long suffering with this terrible darkness and depression, now it only lasts about an hour. And a larger space between each episode. In other words, if the depression is every day, now we're going to see it maybe once a week. That's what we're looking for. And that is going to give us Aurum metallicum, the use for Aurum metallicum, 200C every 3 days until better. And that means generally within a few days we see a shift. Often. Very, very often. Now I'm going to look at the other medicines that are in this beautiful rubric, ailments from winter. Worse in the winter. And my next remedy that I'm going to find here is Kali-phos. I talked about Kali-phos last week. Kalium phosphoricum, K-A-L-I is the way it's spelled. K-A-L-I. Second word is phos, P-H-O-S, abbreviated for the word Kalium phosphoricum. Now, with this medicine, there's also fatigue. Now, Aurum metallicum can also have fatigue, but the most noteworthy symptom for Aurum is this deep darkness. Kalium phosphoricum is a little different. It feels as though they're kind of wiped out mentally, like maybe they've overused their brain. But so the fatigue that they have is not just physical, and sometimes it's not physical at all. Sometimes the fatigue that Kali-phos has in these dark months is that they have a mental fatigue. It is particularly beautiful for people who have overused their brain. Students who are in the middle of exams often need Kalium phosphoricum. Someone who is focused on a business situation in which all they can do is focus, and they have brain fatigue of sorts. And it's a wonderful remedy that I consider a wonderful remedy that is a brain tonic of sorts. And I don't use that in a high potency. I really like Kali-phos, K-A-L-I, phos, P-H-O-S, in a 6X. Now, that's a cell salt. Readily available, very inexpensive, and I like that being used twice daily, B-I-D, twice daily, every day. Not every other day, not every third day, twice daily, every day. And I encourage students to keep Kali-phos on their desk if they're feeling mentally fatigued, and especially if they're taking exams in January, November, December, January, in the cold, terrible months of winter, when the winter blues start to hit them, as well as in conjunction with their having to study and having that brain fatigue of sorts. Again, do we take it forever? No, my friends. It's not a supplement. It's not a vitamin. These medicines are medicine, which means they need to be used until they do their job, which often can be in short order. Not always. Depends on the condition, depends on the medicine, etc. But generally, we take it for a short period of time, and then we see a big shift, or enough of a shift. Now, what kind of a shift are we even looking for? For those of you who are new, or even those of you who've been around for a long time and are seasoned, I want you to think this way. And I want you to remember to explain it to your neighbors and your friends and your family. Don't expect the person to feel, bam, there's something different. Like they feel like an upper, or they feel as though they've had a lot of coffee, or they feel as though they've taken a substance. Because, my friends, they will not have felt like that. Homeopathy doesn't do that. Instead, it eliminates the suffering and brings the person back to normalcy. It brings us to our normal level. That's what we're looking for. So if the dog is itching horribly, we're using, say, an itching medicine, homeopathic medicine, it doesn't give the dog a sense of euphoria because the itching has stopped. No, instead, the dog simply stops itching. If the person has bloating and we're giving the medicine for bloat, the homeopathic medicine for bloat, we don't see, the person doesn't feel, oh my gosh, I feel great. Generally, instead, they are just themselves minus the bloat. So it's the same thing with these. These are medicines that are specific for someone who is feeling heavy and dark and depressed, and maybe a loss of interest in life, or a brain fatigue, a brain fag sensation. It's going to be them minus those symptoms. It's just going to bring them back to normal. And it does that by simply stimulating the body's natural ability to do exactly that. Okay, so now let's look at another medicine. Ammonium carbonicum is my next choice, and I see it as very bold in this rubric. Ammonium carbonicum, A-M-M-O-N, just ammonia or ammonium. A-M-M-O-N-I-U-M, ammonium. The second word is carbonicum. Just the way it sounds, my friends. If you've ever had any Latin in your life, you should be able to sound these words out. If you haven't had Latin, maybe you want to study some, because it's the basis of science and certainly the basis of our materia medica in homeopathy. So ammonium carbonicum is someone who is worse in winter, not only in their suffering psychologically and the sadness and the depression and the lack of motivation, but they're also very cold people. They're chilly all the time. And they're affected by cloudy weather and dull weather. They become unmotivated, uninterested. They crave lots of sweet things. And they can easily put on weight because of it. So they become not their best self, to put it mildly. But if we use ammonium carbonicum, and in this situation, I actually like to use this in not stramonium, no, ammonium. A-M-M-O-N, ammonia. Think ammonia. Ammonium carbonicum. And I like to use this in a 30. I've used it in a 200 as well, but I really like it in a 30th potency, 30C, 30X. Yes, ammonium carbonicum. And I like this medicine in a 30 and maybe once a day and see how it goes. By the way, ammonium carbonicum, people who are lost in the winter months and feel so down, they often gain weight. They crave sweets and they are so miserable. And the more they eat, the worse they feel. They become less and less happy. Okay, next medicine that I want you to look at. Now, there are many to consider here. I'm just getting the top ones, my friends, okay? I'm going to give you one more. And I also am going to tell you that in a few minutes I'm going to go to my Mighty members, and we're going to talk about things a little bit more in depth. And I want you to know, for those of you who are not Mighty members, you might want to join. After Mighty members, I'm going to Mighty's Plus. And we'll go even more in depth with that group. Next medicine, and there are many, is Rhus tox. Rhus tox. R-H-U-S is the first word, and tox is the second word. Rhus toxicodendrum is the full remedy. And these people often suffer not only from sadness and depression and heaviness, but their joints ache and their tendons ache, and they often have arthritis at this time, and it's the cloudy weather, and they feel stiffened up, and they feel worse and worse as it gets colder and more damp, and it's dreary. And getting up after sitting or lying down is really hard for them until they can kind of get going. But there is this kind of a restlessness that they have as well. They can't seem to get comfortable. They get into bed, everything's achy. They feel so sad and down, and they flip and they flop in bed trying to find a comfortable position, and they simply can't. And the comfortable position is usually in relationship to their joints or their tendons. Rhus tax. And we can use that either in a 30 or a 200. And I also, for those of you who are new, I urge you to start using lower potencies, such as a 30, twice daily, every day. And so with that, I'm just going to answer a couple questions. Yes, Alice says, love Rhus tax. It helps with so many things, doesn't it? It's also a great remedy for those of you who need this repeated. Just watch it again. This will be up and posted probably by tonight. If not, it'll be tomorrow. So for those of you who didn't get everything, maybe you started a little bit late. No problem. I lost my train of thought. I've been taking Joe's advice to get natural vitamin D all year round. I have an alarm in my phone that goes off at noon every day. It's called Get Some Sun, so I go outside for 15 minutes and expose as much sun as the cold will let me. Good going, Wendy. Very, very good. And you live in Toronto. Absolutely. Yeah, naked at noon is a great idea. I don't know that you could do that, but that I think there was a book titled that. Let's talk sometime about winter skin. Actually, I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more with my mighties tonight. All right, let's see what else we've got. Does anybody have a recipe for tallow cookies? You know what's interesting, Deborah? Whenever I want to use more tallow, because it's important to use in the winter months, anything that calls for butter, instead I use tallow, or I cut it in half. All righty, calc fluor instead of synthetic vitamin D. I've never used calc fluor instead of vitamin D. Maybe someone's had some good results with that. It's not my thought. It's not my first thought. I like Caliphos. And let's see. More questions. I heard that recommended Caliphos for a friend, but thought it was a 30. Well, it could be a 30. You could certainly use it in a 30, but in this situation, I'm suggesting it in a 6. Let's see what else we've got. What page am I on again on Murphy's? In the 4th, 2539 in the 4th edition. Robin asked Rhus tax for poison ivy. Yeah, we can use Rhus tax for poison ivy. It's not my first choice. I like Rhus tax, maybe 3rd choice for poison ivy. All right, if you're already treating chronic depression with arsenicum 30 twice a day, would you add a medicine for seasonal increase in depression? Well, Grace, let me tell you, if it's not acting, if you're already using arsenicum and it's not showing any improvement, and you're thinking about, I need to use something else, that means arsenicum's not acting. And depression is depression, regardless of what we call it, whether it's seasonal or whether it's garden variety. If the depression is there and the medicine is being used and you're not seeing improvement over a few days at least, abandon the first medicine and go to a second. Cod liver oil and butter are good sources of vitamin D. You're absolutely right, Monica. I couldn't agree more. There you go. Okay, we're going to call it a night for those of you who are live with me tonight. And I will now be going to, are you ready? We're going to Mighties. Okay, my friends. What I want to tell you, my mighty friends, is that there's another medicine I want you to think